I'm Alina, 29, female, and my parents just sent me a $22,000 invoice for my sister's Christmas present after explicitly uninviting me from the holiday. For years, I've known there was an imbalance in my family, a subtle tilt in the universe that always seemed to favor my younger sister, Jessica. But I always dismissed it, telling myself it was just in my head. I was the serious one, she was the creative one. I was the stable one, she was the dreamer. These were the labels our parents, David and Carol, had given us, and for the longest time, I accepted them. I built my life on being the responsible daughter, while Jess built hers on being the star. It wasn't until an invoice landed in my inbox, digitally and coldly, demanding a sum of money that would take me years to save, that I realized it wasn't just a tilt. My family dynamic was a broken scale, with all the weight deliberately stacked on one side, and I was just the fool standing on the other, trying to keep it from crashing down. My fiancé, Tom, a high school history teacher with a refreshingly normal family, has been my rock and, more importantly, my reality check. "It's not normal, Alina," he'd say gently after I'd recount another story of my family's casual disregard for my life versus their obsessive praise for Jessica's. The most glaring example was our education. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a pharmacist. It was a difficult path, requiring 6 years of intense study and discipline. My parents were vocally proud. Our daughter, the future pharmacist. They'd boast at neighborhood barbecues, but their pride never translated into financial support. I worked 2 part-time jobs all through college, bussing tables and stocking shelves at a grocery store. I applied for every scholarship I could find and still had to take out significant student loans. I graduated with honors, a mountain of debt, and a fierce sense of independence born from necessity. My parents attended my graduation, gave me a brief hug, and left before the reception started because they didn't want to hit traffic. 2 years later, it was Jessica's turn. She had breezed through a communications degree with vague plans of becoming famous. Upon her graduation, she announced she wasn't ready for a boring 9-to-5 job. Instead, she wanted to embark on a year-long networking trip through Europe to find inspiration and build her brand as a social media influencer. I braced myself to hear how she planned to fund such a venture. The answer was simple: my parents. They took out a second mortgage on their home, the same home they claimed had no equity when I desperately needed help with a textbook bill years earlier. They called it an investment in her talent. While I was counting pills and paying down my debt, Jessica was posting selfies from Paris and Rome, captioning them with inspirational quotes about following your dreams. My parents' social media pages became shrines to her journey. The financial disparity didn't stop there. It became a constant, low-level hum in my life. My mother, Carol, was an expert at the passive-aggressive plea. "Oh, Alina," she'd sigh over the phone, "I saw the most wonderful camera online today. It would do wonders for Jessica's content, but you know how it is, things are so tight." The implication was always clear. I, with my stable job and dual-income household with Tom, was expected to fill the gap. When I didn't immediately offer to purchase the item, a chill would descend over the conversation. I was being ungrateful or unsupportive. The difference in how they treated our life milestones was perhaps the most painful. When Tom proposed to me, I was ecstatic. We called my parents, beaming. After a moment of stunned silence, my father's first question was, "Is he wealthy?" Not "Are you happy?" or "Congratulations," but a blunt, transactional inquiry into my fiancé's financial status. The conversation was short and awkward. In contrast, when Jessica hit 10,000 followers on Instagram, a milestone she'd been chasing for months, my parents threw a lavish party for her. They invited all their friends and family, rented a photo booth, and presented her with a designer handbag that I knew cost well over $1,000. My engagement was a financial assessment. Her social media metric was a cause for a grand celebration. Looking at the pictures from that party, seeing my parents beaming at Jessica with a kind of adoration I hadn't felt in years, was a deep and quiet hurt I buried inside. I thought that was the worst it could get. I was wrong. The holiday season always amplified the family dynamics. For years, I had dutifully made the 4-hour drive back to my childhood home, bringing thoughtful gifts and a forced smile. Tom usually came with me, sitting through my father's long-winded monologues about Jessica's latest online collaboration, and my mother's not-so-subtle comparisons between my practical life and my sister's glamorous one. This year, however, something felt different. The calls leading up to December were shorter, more distant. When I asked my mom in early December about our plans for Christmas, she was vague. "Oh, honey, we're not sure yet. Things are a little hectic." The definitive call came a week before Christmas. I was at home, decorating our small tree with Tom, when my mom's name flashed on the screen. "Hi, Mom, just thinking about you," I said cheerfully. "Hi, sweetie," she said, her voice strained with artificial sympathy. "Listen, about Christmas. Dad and I were talking, and we've decided to have a very, very quiet one this year. Just the three of us." I felt a familiar pang of disappointment, sharp and swift. "Oh," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted. "Okay, is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," she chirped, a little too quickly. "We just thought, you work so hard, and with your wedding planning, you and Tom should just stay home and relax. Don't worry about making that long drive. Think of it as our gift to you, a stress-free holiday." It was a perfectly crafted excuse, designed to make me feel like they were doing me a favor. But it felt thin, like a costume that didn't quite fit. I looked over at Tom, who was watching me with a concerned expression. "Well, if you're sure," I said slowly. "We're positive, you two just enjoy yourselves. We'll miss you, of course. We'll call you on Christmas Day, love you." And with that, she hung up. I put the phone down, a hollow feeling settling in my stomach. "They're having a quiet Christmas this year," I told Tom. "Just them and Jess. They told us not to come." Tom stopped hanging an ornament and looked at me, his brow furrowed. "A quiet Christmas? Your mom, who invites half the neighborhood over if the weather is nice. That doesn't sound right, Alina." "She said they wanted us to relax," I mumbled, though I didn't believe it myself. "She said you should relax," he corrected gently. "She knows I have 2 weeks off. We could have driven down and back twice. They just didn't want you there." His words were blunt, but they echoed the ugly thought in the back of my mind. Still, I pushed it away. "No, it's fine," I insisted, more to convince myself than him. "Maybe it'll be nice to have a quiet Christmas here, just us." We tried to make the best of it. We baked cookies, watched old holiday movies, and exchanged gifts on Christmas morning. It was peaceful and lovely, but a shadow lingered. I kept checking my phone, waiting for the promised call from my family. By 2 p.m., there was still nothing. I decided to call them. My dad's phone went straight to voicemail. I tried my mom's voicemail. I sent a text to Jessica. "Merry Christmas, hope you guys are having a great day, love you." The hours ticked by, no response. The silence from them was louder than any argument. It felt purposeful, a deliberate severing. I tried to hide my hurt from Tom, but he saw it in the way I kept glancing at my phone, my smile never quite reaching my eyes. As we sat down for dinner, a meal we'd cooked together, I finally put my phone away, accepting that the call wasn't coming. The quiet Christmas they had wished for me was here, and it was lonelier than I could have ever imagined. The days after Christmas passed in a strange, quiet haze. I tried to convince myself that my family had just gotten busy. Maybe they'd gone on a last-minute trip. Maybe their phones were off. Each excuse I concocted felt flimsier than the last. Tom, bless his heart, tried to keep me distracted. We went for long winter walks, visited friends, and started planning our honeymoon. But the gnawing feeling of being intentionally shut out was a constant companion. The truth came, as it so often does in the modern age, through social media. It was 2 days after Christmas, and I was lazily scrolling through my phone while sipping my morning coffee. I saw a post from my cousin Sarah. It was a photo album titled "The Best Family Christmas Party." My heart skipped a beat. I clicked on it. The first picture was a wide shot of my parents' living room, a room I was told would be empty and quiet. It was packed. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the entire extended family was there, smiling, laughing, wearing festive sweaters. My mother was in the center of the frame, raising a glass of champagne. My father had his arm around my grandmother. They looked joyous. I swiped to the next photo. And there she was. My sister Jessica. She was standing in the driveway, beaming with an almost unholy radiance, in front of a brand-new, metallic gray luxury SUV. A massive, glittering red bow was perched on the hood. In the photo, she was holding up a new set of car keys, her mouth open in a perfect circle of feigned surprise. My parents stood on either side of her, their faces glowing with a pride so intense it felt like a physical blow. I kept swiping, my hands starting to tremble. There were more photos of the car. Jessica posing in the driver's seat. Jessica hugging our parents in front of the car. A photo of the whole family gathered around the car as if it were a sacred monument. The quiet Christmas was a lie. It wasn't just a party, it was a coronation. They hadn't just excluded me, they had erased me from a major family event and replaced my presence with a monument to my sister's entitlement. A cold, sick feeling washed over me. It was a complex cocktail of emotions. The deep, gut-wrenching pain of being lied to by the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, the burning humiliation of seeing my exclusion displayed so publicly, and the bitter taste of betrayal. They didn't just not want me there. They had actively planned a celebration that they knew I couldn't be a part of. The lie about a quiet Christmas was a strategic move to get me out of the way so they could properly worship at the altar of Jessica. "Tom," I whispered, my voice cracking, "you need to see this." He came over and looked at my phone screen. His usually calm face hardened. He scrolled through the photos, his jaw tightening with each swipe. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just wrapped his arms around me as a sob finally broke its way out of my chest. "They threw her a party," I cried into his shoulder. "They threw her a huge party and bought her a car. They told me to stay home and relax." "They're cruel, Alina," he said, his voice low and furious. "What they did is unbelievably cruel." He was right. It wasn't about favoritism anymore. This was a deliberate act of emotional cruelty. They had created an elaborate deception to avoid any potential awkwardness or confrontation from me, while they showered my sister with a gift worth tens of thousands of dollars. As I sat there, wrapped in Tom's arms, looking at the smiling faces of my family, I felt a distance growing, not just in miles but in spirit. A chasm had opened up, and I wasn't sure I ever wanted to cross back over. The shock from the social media photos settled into a cold, hard knot in my stomach. For 2 days, I existed in a state of numb anger. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of my sister beaming in front of her new SUV, surrounded by the family that had told me to stay home. Tom was my anchor, handling me with a gentle care that stood in stark contrast to my family's casual brutality. He made me tea, encouraged me to talk when I wanted to, and sat with me in silence when I didn't. He was furious on my behalf, his anger a warm shield against the coldness of my own. I hadn't heard a word from my parents or Jessica. There was no "oops, we forgot to call you" text or a guilty voicemail. There was only silence, which confirmed that my exclusion was not an oversight but a calculated decision. The party and the car were meant for their perfect little world, and I was simply not a part of it. On the third day, the email arrived. I was at my laptop, trying to distract myself with work, when the notification popped up. The sender was my father, David. The subject line was chilling in its corporate sterility. "Family contribution." My heart began to pound against my ribs. What could that possibly mean? A demand for an apology, an explanation? With a trembling hand, I clicked it open. The email was short, polite, and utterly insane. It read, "Hi Alina, hope you had a relaxing holiday break. As you know, we are all so proud of Jessica and want to do everything we can to support her burgeoning career as a creator. A strong brand image is essential in her field, and reliable, impressive transportation is a key part of that. We were able to secure the vehicle she wanted to help her achieve her goals. As you are the most financially successful member of our family, we have, after careful consideration, allocated the cost of this essential career investment to you. We see it as your contribution to the family's overall success and a wonderful way for you to support your sister. Attached you will find the invoice. Please remit payment within 30 days. We can discuss payment plan options if needed. Love, Dad." My vision tunneled. The words on the screen seemed to warp and shimmer. I clicked on the attachment. A professional-looking PDF opened. It was an invoice, complete with a number, my name and address, and my parents' address. The line item read, "Jessica's Career Advancement Vehicle," and next to it the total, $22,000. I stared at the number, unable to process it. $22,000. They had lied to me, excluded me, and were now sending me the bill for the party I wasn't invited to. The sheer audacity was breathtaking. It was so far beyond favoritism that it entered a new territory of delusion and exploitation. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a walking, talking ATM, a resource to be tapped for the benefit of their real child, Jessica. The hurt that had been simmering for days instantly evaporated, replaced by a wave of cold, diamond-hard fury. The shock was gone, the sadness was gone. All that was left was an absolute, clear-eyed certainty. This was the end of the line. "Tom," I called out, my voice dangerously calm. He rushed over, alerted by my tone. I didn't say anything, I just turned the laptop screen towards him. He read the email, his eyes widening. Then he saw the invoice. A deep, visceral anger radiated from him. He looked from the screen to me and back again. No, he said, his voice a low growl. Absolutely not. You are not paying one single cent of that, Alina. This is monstrous. He put his hand on my shoulder, his touch firm and grounding. This is it, he said, his eyes locking with mine. You know that, right? This is the moment you draw the line so hard they can never cross it again. I nodded, a single, sharp movement. The knot in my stomach wasn't one of anxiety anymore. It was a knot of resolve. He was right. They had finally pushed too far. They had mistaken my kindness for weakness and my silence for consent for the last time. For the rest of the day, I didn't respond to the email. Tom's advice was to let the initial rage subside and approach the situation with a clear head. We spent the evening not as a grieving couple, but as a strategic team. We talked through every possible angle, every potential argument they would make, and every guilt trip they would try to send me on. By the time we went to bed, I didn't feel hurt or angry. I felt prepared. The next morning, I sent a single, simple text message into a group chat with my parents and Jessica. It read, "We need to have a video call to discuss the email you sent. Tonight at 7 p.m. My mother replied almost instantly. Of course, sweetie, can't wait to chat. Her chipper tone, even over text, was like scraping nails on a chalkboard. It was clear they had no idea what was coming. They likely thought I was calling to happily discuss how I'd be transferring the $22,000. At 6:55 p.m., Tom and I sat down at our dining room table with my laptop. He held my hand under the table, a silent gesture of support. You've got this, he whispered. I took a deep breath and clicked start call. Their faces popped up on the screen, all three of them squeezed onto their living room sofa. They were all smiles. Jessica was holding up her new car keys, dangling them in front of the camera. Hi, honey, my mom chirped. So good to see your face. Hey, Alina, my dad said, giving a little wave. So about that email, I cut him off. My voice was even, level, and devoid of the emotion they were expecting. That's what I want to talk about, I said. Let me be perfectly clear so there is no misunderstanding. I will not be paying the invoice. The smiles on their faces froze and then melted away, replaced by identical masks of confusion. What? Jessica said, lowering the keys. What do you mean? I mean I am not giving you $22,000 for your car, I stated, looking directly into the camera. My father's face began to flush with red. Now, hold on a minute, Alina. We are a family. We support each other. Do we? I asked, the question hanging in the air. Because I seem to remember being told that Christmas was canceled this year. I was told you were having a quiet holiday and that I should stay home. But then I saw the pictures, Dad. I saw the party. I saw the entire family celebrating the brand new car that you now expect me to pay for after you explicitly uninvited me. My mother jumped in, her voice taking on a wounded, defensive tone. We were just trying to save you the trip. We thought you'd be tired. You lied, I said simply. You lied so you could throw a party for Jessica and buy her a car without having to deal with me being there. And then you had the nerve to send me the bill. This isn't about family support. This has never been about family support. This is about you using me as a bank. I took a breath and continued, the years of buried resentment finally coming to the surface. You took out a mortgage for Jessica's networking trip, after I had to work 2 jobs to put myself through school. You throw her parties for Instagram followers while questioning the financial stability of my fiancé. You constantly hint that I should be buying her things for her career. This invoice wasn't a surprise. It was just the logical conclusion to 20 years of blatant, unapologetic favoritism. Silence. They just stared, their faces a mixture of shock and dawning anger. They were so used to me quietly accepting my role that my direct confrontation had left them speechless. For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. I had the truth, and it was undeniable. The silence on the video call stretched for a few moments, thick with unspoken fury. It was Jessica who broke it, her voice dripping with a venomous mix of disbelief and indignation. I cannot believe you, she spat, her face contorted in a sneer. You are just so jealous. You've always been jealous of me. You have your boring, safe little life, and you can't stand to see me taking risks and being successful. This car is an investment in my brand. My father, finding his voice, quickly backed her up. His tone was one of deep disappointment, as if I had just failed a critical moral test. Your sister is right, Alina. We didn't raise you to be this selfish. We are a family. We rise and fall together. Your success is the family's success. It's your duty to help your sister. You're trying to punish her for having a dream. Then came my mother, armed with the guilt she had wielded like a weapon for my entire life. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at me with a pained expression. How can you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, we gave you a good home, we fed you, we clothed you. Is this how you repay us? By throwing it all back in our faces, by being so ungrateful. I listened to them, one after the other, as they recited their lines from the same old, tired script. Jealousy, selfishness, ungratefulness. These were the words they had always used to keep me in line, to make me question my own feelings and perceptions. But this time, the words had no power. They were just noise. Tom squeezed my hand under the table, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. When they finally paused, expecting me to crumble or apologize, I looked at them calmly. I'm not jealous of you, Jess. I'm happy with my life and my career. A career, by the way, that I built and paid for myself. I turned my gaze to my parents. And Mom, Dad, being a parent isn't a transaction. You don't get to hold a good home over my head for the rest of my life as leverage to fund my sister's lifestyle. That's not love. It's manipulation. I took a deep breath, ready to say the words that I knew would change everything forever. This conversation is over. My decision is final, but it's not just about the money anymore. I cannot be in a relationship where my only value is what I can provide financially. It's not healthy, and I won't do it anymore. I looked at each of them, my parents and my sister, who were now staring at me with open-mouthed shock. Until you can see me as a daughter and a sister to be loved and respected, and not just a bank to be used, we have nothing to talk about. Don't call me, don't text me, and don't send me any more invoices. And with that, I moved the cursor over the red end call button and clicked. The screen went blank, plunging the room into silence. The faces of my family vanished. A single tear escaped my eye and rolled down my cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of release. A profound, shuddering sense of relief washed over me, so potent it almost made me dizzy. The weight I had been carrying on my shoulders for my entire life, the weight of their expectations, their manipulations, and their conditional love was suddenly gone. I was free. Tom pulled me into a hug, and for the first time in days, I felt like I could truly breathe. In the immediate aftermath of the call, I went through the digital motions of separation. I blocked my parents' and my sister's numbers on my phone. I went onto social media and blocked their profiles, severing the last tie that allowed them a window into my life, and me a window into their curated reality. Each click was a small, satisfying act of self-preservation. The first few days were strange. I kept expecting the phone to ring with an unknown number or a desperate email to appear in my inbox, alternating between rage and pleas. But there was only silence. It seemed they were so confident in their position that my standing up to them was an offense they could not forgive. Their silence was the final confirmation that I had made the right choice. They weren't fighting for a relationship with their daughter. They were angry that a financial asset had been liquidated. Life became noticeably quieter, and that quiet was peaceful. The low-level anxiety that had been my constant companion for years began to fade. I no longer dreaded my phone buzzing with a call from my mother or a text from my sister with a link to something expensive she wanted. I found myself more present in my own life, more focused at work, and more connected to Tom. We threw ourselves into wedding planning, and for the first time, it felt like it was truly our event. There was no pressure to invite people to appease my parents, no need to run our choices by them for approval. We chose the venue we loved, picked the menu that made us happy, and created an invitation list filled with people who genuinely loved and supported us. My chosen family. A month after the invoice, as Tom and I had come to call it, something shifted in me. I was walking home from work, and the grief I had been bracing for, the grief for the family I had lost, never came. Instead, I felt a profound sense of lightness. I hadn't lost a family, I had escaped a toxic system. I was mourning the idea of a family that had never really existed. The one I was building with Tom was real. It was based on mutual respect, genuine affection, and unconditional support. The other day, Tom and I were sitting on the couch, addressing wedding invitations. He paused and looked at me, a soft smile on his face. "You seem different," he said. "Happier." I smiled back, a real, unburdened smile. I am, I said. I feel like I've spent my whole life walking on a tightrope, trying to keep my balance so I wouldn't disappoint anyone. I finally decided to just step off, and I realized I could fly. It was the truest thing I had ever said. The ground below wasn't a scary drop, it was solid, and it was my own. So, to everyone watching, I have to ask, am I the bad guy for cutting off my family after they sent me a $22,000 bill for a car? Or did I finally do what was necessary to protect myself? After listening to today's story, perhaps it has raised some new questions in your mind. Every day on Reddit, new experiences and moments create fresh stories. We are all human. If you enjoyed this story, feel free to share it. Thank you for your time, and don't forget to keep an eye out for more stories coming soon.